Last month, I read the latest Michael Crichton book, Eruption, the one that was finished by James Patterson. It was about a volcano in Hawaii. And lo and behold, in my recommendation feed on Prime Video, I saw that Dante's Peak was included in the catalog, a movie that I have not seen since it came out. I vividly remember renting the VHS, probably not even from Blockbuster, but from Video Time, which was a chain down in Las Vegas. And it's funny how your mind like captures lines when you are young, because I remembered specific pieces of dialogue exactly as they had been said, and I even had a good handle on what the story beats were, and remembered them all very vividly. So I threw that on over the last couple of days, picking at a chore here and there or whatever, and just finished it yesterday, I guess. And I noticed a couple of things. With disaster movies, you got a core cast of characters who are responding to the disaster. There's usually not a whole lot of story there. It's about the spectacle of it. It's not necessarily one that's like, hey, this is how this character changed or got better or whatever. That same year, there was also a movie just called Volcano about some volcanic activity going off in LA. It had Tommy Lee Jones in it, amongst others. It was not as good, not as well received. And I wondered if climate protester got him. I wondered if Dante's Peak was going to be one of those movies that I remembered more fondly than it deserved. Well, after watching this one again, I thought, man, this movie really does everything right for what it is. The pacing is great. It gets in, it establishes what it needs to, and it just moves at a great clip from there. There's nothing there's no phase of the film that lasts longer than it should. There's the tease, the escalation, the climax, and then the aftermath. But unlike that Eruption book by Crichton, this book was about how the characters changed throughout the course of the disaster. So the main character is Harry, played by Pierce Brosnan. The story opens up with him in Colombia with his girlfriend, fiance, whatever. There's a volcano going off in a small town there, and the gist of it is that he's a volcanologist who works for the USGS, and he and the girlfriend were there to study it, and they waited too long to evacuate, and when the volcano exploded, she died as they were leaving. Fast forward 4 years later, he's still working for the USGS based out of Portland, and they send him up to the Cascades to check out the volcano in the fictional town of Dante's Peak. They got a bunch of advanced tools and stuff that they're using to try to detect whether this mountain is changing or not. And he's obviously a little bit shook after what happened in Colombia and losing somebody that he loved. So you could understand that he's a little bit more cautious than he used to be, and he's more prone to reporting that something is wrong. And there's some doubt established as to whether his readings on this thing, he predicts that the mountain is going to explode soon. There's some doubt as to whether he's right about any of this. To complicate things, the town of Dante's Peak has been trying to move up on some list of best small places to live. This attracts business, it helps the town grow, and so they are very wary of a report like that. It could really damage their prospects for getting higher up on this list. The female lead of the movie is introduced here, Laura Hamilton. Linda Hamilton? I can never ever remember. Sarah Connor. She's the single mom, small business owner, a hallmark female lead in this town. She also happens to be the mayor, which is a part-time position. But she runs a little coffee shop, and she's got two little kids, 6 and or 10 and 8. Her ex-husband went AWOL, and her ex-mother-in-law also lives near the town. She's kind of reclusive. She lives up the mountain. And so she's juggling all these complicated interpersonal relationships, and then comes in Captain Dreamboat, Pierce Brosnan, to check out the mountain. They immediately hit it off. They've got a good rapport with each other, and he reports his concerns about the mountain, and she reports her concerns about the town, but she's inclined to believe him. She's not overly skeptical or anything. However, Harry's boss soon comes to town with the rest of the team. He says, hey, get a team up here with tools. Harry's boss is telling the city council and the mayor and stuff, like, don't worry, nothing's going to happen here. And he tells them, 15, 20 years ago, I would have bet you every dollar I have that some mountain in California was going to explode. It ended up not, but the panic crashed property values, and the place never recovered. So it's like, okay, you understand like why he wants to be cautious. Obviously, he knows the volcanoes are dangerous, but he's got more than one concern to balance here. Well, things escalate and escalate and escalate. Obviously, the volcano explodes, and by the time they have definitive, absolute proof that something bad is going to happen, it's too late to like safely evacuate the town. Some people die, some people get hurt, and there's bridges and all that stuff, so there are bottlenecks to getting out of there, and it all just goes to hell in a handbag pretty quickly. The last thing that Paul says to Harry is, for whatever it's worth, you were right and I was wrong. And Harry's not proud or shoving that in his face or anything. Like, these are two men that they're both right in a sense, and they're able to defend their position. They're not hostile or antagonistic towards each other, but they have very deep-seated reasons based on experiences in their past for holding to the position that they hold in this argument, in this discussion. Like, we can't ruin this town. Okay, sure, economically we can't do that, but what happens if/when this thing goes off? Then the town gets obliterated anyway. Then what do we do? And they don't have definitive proof that's going to happen one way or the other. You understand why Paul has his hunches, Harry has his hunches, and you go from there. Another character angle of this is that Rachel, female lead, she's got an antagonistic relationship with her ex-mother-in-law, the reclusive woman that lives up in the mountains. And they don't really like each other, but that's her kid's grandma. The dad's not in the picture, so you hold on to what family you've got. And when they warn her that the mountain is going to explode, she doesn't believe them. She's very stubborn. She's very rural. And in a lot of ways, like, it's annoying to have characters like this. But at the same time, like, if you know people who are small town, rural, stubborn, this is a good perspective for a character to have. You don't want every single character to have the same mindset about everything, because, hey, that's how people are in real life. You're going to have a lot of different perspectives on things. That was, in retrospect, one of the beefs that I had about the Eruption book by Crichton, is that all of the good guys believed all of the same smart, good stuff, and the few bad guys believed the smart, dumb, bad stuff, or the same dumb, bad stuff. And that was it. And some bad guys died in a helicopter accident, and the good guys survived, and like, there was not really any character angle to it. There was very little to sink your teeth into on that front, whereas Dante's Peak provided all of that. Harry and Rachel and the kids, they go up the mountain to grab the grandma and the dog, grandma's dog Ruffy, and in their panicked escape, like, all the trucks get washed away by lava. They've got to hop on a boat and get across a lake to the other side. Ruth jumps out because she panics, and she's trying to wade through shallow water that's been altered by the lava, and she ends up burning her legs really badly, and she's an old woman. She can't survive it much longer, and she dies with Harry and Rachel and the grandkids looking onward. It's obviously very traumatizing for the children. But in their parting moments, Rachel and Ruth, they kind of make up with each other. Ruth says, hey, my son was an idiot to leave you. I never gave you the credit that you deserved for taking on everything that you do. And Rachel says, I'm an idiot. I never really gave you a chance. Like, she admits that, I had some hostility towards you as well. Uh, Character arcs are a question of how the characters respond to the adversity in the story. And this relationship was changed as a result, and these people were able to put away their personal differences in the face of something much more grave and much more serious. It gave them perspective, and they were changed in a positive way for it, even if one of them died in the process. The little girl, she was just kind of along for the ride, but she provided a good counter and a foil for the brother. They played off of each other really well. And the brother was a good little self-starter. He was a rambunctious kid who didn't like to listen to his mom, but he had a role to play in that he always liked to go hang out and hide out with his friends in this abandoned mine, which ended up being important for the story because when the mountain finally did go pyroclastic and explode, Harry was trying to get the family out of there, and he's like, oh yeah, there's this mine where your son hangs out. They go and crash in there, and they survived the pyroclastic cloud, and the kid had snacks in there for his hideout. So while they waited to get rescued, they had the resources that they needed. So all in all, like, as a disaster movie goes, it checks the boxes that you need, aka just a disaster, but they put the effort into the character side of it, which is really what the audiences are going to resonate with. That's the part that's going to hang with them after the fact. I mean, you can put all the good-looking actors that you want into a story, which is an advantage that you would have over a print version, and you can show them like surviving a natural disaster, but if that's all there is to it, it's not going to leave an impression. It's not going to be very memorable. And in print, where you don't have the boost, like you've got the handicap of not having visuals, you've really got to lean into the necessity of those character moments. You don't have a middling character to be propped up by a really good actor. You've got to handle the writing on that part really, really well. And as is often the case with Crichton books, the character development side of it all just wasn't there or wasn't very strong. Yeah, you've got a charismatic actor like Pierce Brosnan and a well-loved actress like Linda Hamilton? Miss L. Hamilton playing that role, and playing emotionally vulnerable characters who had an obvious mutual attraction and also had very important jobs to handle, and were able to find their growth in each other as they also survived this devastating volcanic explosion. As a final note, something else I want to say about Dante's Peak is, I don't know where they filmed it, but they picked a beautiful little town to film it up in the Pacific Northwest, and the location shots were great, the outdoor shots were great, but this movie especially deserves recognition for its miniature work. You can tell kind of after the fact that, oh yeah, these are definitely miniatures, but oh my goodness, it's almost 30 years later, it stands up to the scrutiny of cameras, and the effects have aged well. Practical effects are always so underrated, and I would personally love to see them make a comeback if they can. So, hey, if you've got Prime and you haven't watched Dante's Peak in a while, go do that. If you've never seen it, you're in for a treat. And if you have seen it and it's been a while, it's definitely held up. It is out of these three volcano stories now: Volcano, Dante's Peak, and Eruption. Dante's Peak is the best one. So, all right, I'm at work. Let me know what you guys think. Till next time, drive safe. See you out there.